Welcome to the TNC Random Fandom podcast. We are here to have fun and talk all things pop culture, collecting, and nerd culture in general. Make sure you join the conversation during our live stream with our most excellent hosts, Craig Borden and Tommy Mock. Let the shenanigans begin.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of TNC's Random Fandom. We already see two of you already in there, folks, so thank you very much for joining us on what is basically going to be live from New York talk on all things that went sketch to movies for Saturday Night Live. Tommy Mock, how is things? You're not living in a van down by the river, are you?
I am not living in a van down by the river. How are you doing, my friend? You seem to be in much better spirits than last time.
Very much so. I actually, wasn't quite on my steady diet of government cheese or anything like that, or, what was it, sweaty balls, the other weird Saturday Night Live foodisms that came off, no colon blow, all that kind of stupid that you can humanly possibly have from old things Saturday Night Live. So, but no, things are good. Things are feeling a lot better this week. So thank you for asking. So how excited are you to dive into something very fun this week?
You know what? I've been looking forward to this. I've done a little bit of research. We actually had a little bit of interaction on our Instagram page with a couple of fans who chimed in with the question that I put out there, which was, what was your favorite sketch to movie, SNL movie, basically? And we had one from Eric Rosenheck. I believe you know this gentleman.
I do. He's a goofball.
And Tim from Trivia Chat also chimed in. They both had mentioned Wayne's World. So, and I know that we're going to talk pretty extensively about Wayne's World, but they both pretty much say that Wayne's World is the GOAT, and I would have to agree. So, shout out to them, and I will be posting something after the show, kind of to single them out and thank them for being a part of our show, as we want all of our fans to do.
And on that note, obviously, as we're chatting this evening, we are on a live stream on YouTube, so make sure you just hit us up, and we will put any tidbits, any stupid little comments you have up on the screen. You'll get your 5 seconds of glory here on the TNC Random Fandom. That's how it is here. We just want to have fun and goof around. So let's get right to it, because there's actually surprisingly a good hour here for us to be able to talk about with how much content here is what has been produced over the years from Saturday Night Live. And it's amazing to me, Tommy, that what is the story of Saturday Night Live starting in 1975 October. So like we were talking about, they're literally a year away from having their true 50th anniversary, but they're damn near close to it. And I wanted to start this evening talking about the movie that is out in theaters right now, Saturday night, which is about the not ready for primetime players and their first airing in October 1975. Tommy, I don't care so much about the movie, but I know you know the history of how that show went down and whatnot, just as much as I do. Talk to me. How important was this to all the stupid things that you and I get to enjoy comedically?
Well, think about it. Think of all of the careers that got jump-started from this show alone. I mean, we're talking about the Bill Murrays and the Gilda Radners and the John Belushis and the Dan Aykroyds, and then you can go further down. I mean, look at Jimmy Fallon. He's, the host of the Tonight Show now. So you think of this show alone has been, I guess, I'm losing the words, but it was like a springboard for a lot of careers. I mean, some people that would come as just stand-up comedians, they start out on Saturday Night Live, and they have huge careers afterwards. But there are actors out there that tried out for SNL and didn't get it, like Jim Carrey. Carrey tried out but he went on to host several times over. But I think that this show actually is, I like seeing it continue. To me, it's part of my life. I'm pretty much, not to age myself, but I am the same age as SNL. So
just missing it, but I'm classically trained in comedy. So I've been watching old Saturday Night Live bits my whole entire life. So hence the reason I know about things like the Bassmatic 3000 from Dan Aykroyd, literally just shoving a full bass into a blender and watching it go everywhere. All the way back to Samurai Deli stuff with, yeah, exactly. So, but the original cast, like I said, it is something of Hollywood as far as what should be a movie, the new one. And you, like you mentioned, just the original cast: Gilda Radner, Lorraine Newman, Garrett Morris, who doesn't get enough clout for the funny man that he is. And watching him and Chevy Chase work together on the Weekend Update thing was always hysterical, especially when they're doing the hearing impaired news, which was him just literally screaming everything. Jane Curtin, we mentioned, Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and eventually it turned into Bill Murray, and so on and so on and so forth, and all the people from, it's a who's of comedy over the years and what has come from Saturday Night Live. And it really has had to be put into a Hollywood story. And I'm glad that they did that. I look very much forward to finally seeing it at some point. Just hadn't been able to get to a movie theater to see that one. I even missed out on my big nerdy one, and I didn't see Transformers 1 even in the movie theater. So that was how much I've been able to get to the movie theater lately.
Faux pas.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the one, obviously, like I said, that's the current day movie. That is the most recent, I'll call it, Saturday Night Live movie. But there are actually 11 official sketch to movie Saturday Night Lives. And for the amount of sketches over the years, I'm shocked it's only 11. And I'm still even shocked some of the ones that did turn to movies were ones that actually became movies. But we'll to that in a minute. So go ahead, you got something on your mind?
No. I was just getting ready to say that's true. It's like some of these movies that they actually greenlit, you're kind of shaking your head going, how did that make it? I mean, and obviously they picked movies that were, or I should say they picked skits that were obviously reoccurring characters, because they were fan favorites and everybody loved those characters. So they're like, well, why don't we take this, 5-minute sketch and turn it into an 1.5-hour movie? Sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses. I would have to say that SNL movies tend to miss the mark at movie theaters a lot of times, but then they become like cult classics later on, especially during the DVD era, even the VHS era. You're looking at movies that people kind of just stumble upon in like the budget bins of Walmart or Target. And
it's perfect for Blockbuster Video in the day. It's like, okay, 100%. Great. Oh, I know who that is. Yeah, I'm going to grab that movie. I'm going home with it. And I'm going to get a laugh out of it. It'll be worth $3 or whatever, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then they bomb at the box office, but for some reason they have these cult followings, and then all of a sudden it's just like those are movies that everybody knows, and they go back to them, and it's almost like a security blanket for some people. It's warm, and it's comfort food for the brain. It's brain rot.
Yeah. So to that point, on the comfort level, food is how I even thought about having this episode on our early parts of our TNC random fandom here, as this is episode number 4. No, 3. Yeah, 4.
4. We did one on Wednesday.
Yes, we did one on Wednesday too. So there is that. So anyways, as I was sitting around watching TV and finally had 5 minutes to myself of like, being with it after having a horrible illness and not feeling good. And I'm flipping through the channels on Pluto TV, which is just all free TV stuff, but it's honestly a lot of really good stuff I love watching at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And they actually had the original Blues Brothers movie on. So I literally just sat down and watched. I missed only like the first 10 minutes of it. I came in right in when the point where the nun is literally hitting them with the and everything like that, trying to get them going to get them the money that they need to keep the, church open and everything like that. But it was one of those things that just dawned on me, like, I guess the moment where he's like, the band, man, and I was like, okay, we got to talk Saturday Night Live movies. And that's the one that got the ball rolling. And Tommy, as far as what we were just talking about with a sketch to a movie, the only thing the Blues Brothers ever did on Saturday Night Live was hang out with the band and sing. So there was no backstory, there was no nothing, there was an album. John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd could do no wrong at this time in history as far as anything they were doing pop culture wise. That jump to go from nothing to what ended up being, like I told you before the show, the most unclassifiable movie in all movie history. We'll get to that in a minute. What were your thoughts on the Blues Brothers?
Well, the Blues Brothers, first of all, music, fantastic. You have to be a blues fan. You know what? No, you don't have to be a blues fan. You can just enjoy the music. But I have to say it, the Blues Brothers were set and filmed in my hometown of Chicago, Illinois. It's here, Chicago in the house. But no, I mean, to me, it's a nostalgia trip because of the whole Chicago connection. And a lot of them came from Second City, which at the time was based out of Chicago. So, even Dan Aykroyd coming from Canada, had his start before SNL was with Second City. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I am correct on that one.
You are correct. Honestly, most of the cast originally came from Second City, Belushi and Aykroyd included with that. So go ahead.
But I will never turn off the Blues Brothers because it's just, like I said, it's a nostalgia trip for me. It's like having that Chicago dog. It's the Italian beef. It's the Chicago deep dish pizza of movies for me. So, it's bad for you, but you just want to eat it anyways.
But to that point, it's not so bad for you. It's only an hour and a half long of good music, car chases, comedy, and celebrities galore for the year that it came out. This is a movie that features even Carrie Fisher, obviously all the musicians from Aretha Franklin and everybody else. It was a who's who at the time. James Brown. Why am I blanking on a couple of the other people that were in it? But anyways, it was just insanely good, and the music was amazing, and their music was really good. That was the other thing that was, for the person that wasn't paying attention, well, aren't they comedians? Why are they, they got to be dubbing over? No, that was 100%. The Saturday Night Live band and Dan Aykroyd with John Belushi singing. There was no dubbing, no nothing, no crazy. Another one. John Candy was the cop trying to get him at the end of the movie.
As a matter of fact, I was just watching Uncle Buck earlier, just before we came on.
Yep, there's another holiday classic for you. But it was that weirdness to it. I think at the same time, it was like, okay, we're on a mission from God. We got to get enough money to keep the church open and the orphanage and everything. And they decide to get the band back together. No intention of paying them. Just get them all set, donate their money. They ended up getting a record deal at the end of the movie where they were singing Jailhouse Rock in the prison. But all those weird things that just transpired to eventually them landing there in prison. But it was car chases, a ton of comedy, Carrie Fisher shooting at him, them pranking the good old boys at the bar and stealing their place with the chicken wire, so they were doing the world's weirdest gig, and instead of doing blues music, they had to do bluegrass for the night.
Okay, so they sang the theme to Rawhide, if I remember. Didn't they also sing "Stand by Your Man"?
Yes.
Stand by your man.
Oh, it was just. But to that point, like I said, if you were looking at those sketches, you would have never a million years would have guessed that was what was going to come from the sketch to go to the movie. And that's the beauty of what those gentlemen did and how the group that they were open with to be able to write and just be free. And that's what Saturday Night Live gave all those people, the freedom to be able to just be themselves, be silly on a really public platform, and then translate into movies.
And just, and with that said, though, is even SNL, they push the envelope a lot of times with their satire. A lot of those earlier skits, especially some of the skits with Richard Pryor as the host, some of those skits would never, ever, ever be able to be aired in today. And I know you've probably seen some of the old school skits where certain words were used on air and they aired. And so yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that I think that SNL does well, but I don't think they do enough of anymore, is pushing the envelope on the satire, on true
Correct.
satire, you know. So but yeah, you know, but
Satire the satire sketch that pops into my mind that I think would be a perfect epitome of just watching things that you would never be able to do these days is there is a bit with Richard Pryor and Chevy Chase just exchanging blows and horribleness back and forth, and it aired.
Yes, yes, and you know exactly what I'm saying. But it was an interview. Chevy Chase was the interviewer, and Richard Pryor was the interviewee, and they were doing word association.
Yes,
and that's exactly what I was referring to. But even then,
it literally went to every corner of just horrible that you can humanly think of on any political correct scale, and getting way off topic. And then at the end of it, he just takes his papers and goes, "So you can start on Monday, right?" It was just done. Yeah, no problem.
But that's exactly what it is. Is that it went into. They pushed the envelope. They pushed the social norms a little bit, and but not to get off topic anymore, but but the Blues Brothers were basically, let's make a movie that is like Smokey and the Bandit with, but not in the country, but in the city.
That's kind of what it was, honestly. It's a good way of putting it. To the point of literally like screwing around with neo-Nazis and all these other horrible things. That was like, okay. What else was there? The fact that Ray Charles has got everybody dancing in the street to tell them to shake their tail feather, and then he goes, "And as usual, I'm going to take a check that'll bounce." When they're buying all their brand new equipment to go down tour with it. And they just kind of go, "You're not supposed to know that."
So the Blues Brothers came out in 1980, which was the first official SNL skit turn movie. What is considered, according to IMDb/Wikipedia, would be the second one? What's our
According
second?
to that one is the Wayne's World, and it took another 12 years, and that's saying a lot, I think. And I think that just shows you the downhill turn that the Saturday Night Live product took in the 80s. Unfortunately, outside of a certain few cast members that I know you can name, with Eddie Murphy and a few others, it really did take a ding in the 80s.
The Eddie Murphy, Joe Piscopo years were actually pretty good when those two were together, but for the most part, those were pretty lean years. But I'm gonna throw something out there before you give us our topic of Wayne's World. So the Heck on Instagram, which is Eric Rosenheck, right?
Yep.
He said that Wayne Campbell was a character before, or was created before SNL. And that is very true, but I'm going to give you something that kind of is a SNL spinoff. But a lot of characters actually started out wherever the cast member started at. So whether it be the Groundlings, or whether it be Second City, or any of these other, Upright Citizens Brigade, I believe it is.
Yeah. Or any of those places like that. Even there's a hole-in-the-wall comedy store doing stand-up, right? People have characters.
Right. So they would have these characters that they would develop in these places where they develop their craft, and then they would incorporate those into where they ended up, which would be SNL. And so Wayne Campbell being one of them. But I'm going to give you one person and you mentioned, actually you didn't mention him. You mentioned him show prep. This person is on only murders in the building. Mr. Martin Short. Mr. Martin Short not only was an SNL cast member, but prior to being on SNL, he was on another sketch comedy show, which was called Second City or SCTV, which was Second
Yep.
City TV, based out in Canada.
Yep.
And you got your John Candy came from there. You got Eugene Levy came from there. A lot of
same thing
people
as
that
Saturday
would
Night Live at
cross
the end
over.
of the day.
Yeah,
A lot
exactly.
of greats that came from there.
But the character of Ed Grimley started out over at SCTV with Second City TV, and then when Martin Short became a character, or became a feature
Cast member,
character,
right?
cast member on SNL, he brought Ed Grimley with him. But did you know that Ed Grimley had a Saturday morning cartoon?
I did not know that. If I did know about it, apparently I blocked it out of my brain, one or the other.
So that was my little curveball for you, is that it's not a movie, but a Saturday Night Live skit character got his own cartoon on Saturday mornings.
That's got to be the only one that went full TV show I could think of, because
I
everybody
think
else
so.
kind of took these characters and they made movies, or they didn't do anything at all.
Right.
But you mentioned a lot of these guys and gals that brought their own characters. Gilda Radner, same thing, brought a bunch of her characters into Saturday Night Live, turned into sketches. The one I led off the show here with saying if you lived in a van down by the river or not. That was
Matt
something
Foley.
that Chris Farley developed while he was doing stand-up and improv and stuff. So he brought that character in, and after he's chugged 15 gallons of coffee, he's jacked up enough, ready to do it. It's just how it is. So but that's how these comedy gold doesn't just strike, right? It's those things were refined over years and years and years and years. And I think that right there spins us into what became Wayne's World.
Yep.
These were two characters that obviously you had mentioned. Mike Myers had been playing with the character for years. He found his comic, partner in Dana Carvey, and the two of them worked these things out to a level of crazy. And it was not a huge budget movie. It ended up grossing somewhere in $100 million to $120 million domestically here in the United States. So this was not the cult thing that you were talking about. Blues Brothers did really, really well in 1980, but same thing with Wayne's World. So you talk about translating sketches to movies. They came out swinging with the first two, with Blues Brothers and the first Wayne's World movie. And I quote this movie pretty much on a daily basis. It is one of my favorite movies. There's a reason there's a sign right about here that says no stairway denied. But rather than letting me gush on this movie, Tommy, go ahead and tell me about your love for the Wayne's World movie.
So, I have to agree with Eric and Tim and you, that I do believe that out of all of the SNL skits turned movies, Wayne's World, the first Wayne's World, is by far the best, in my opinion. It was around that time. I would have to say, so it was 93. I was a sophomore in high school. No, 92. I was a sophomore in high school. And, so it was just one of those movies that it just resonated with me. And my best friend Steve and we would, go and hang out, and let's just put it this way. There's stories that I can tell you that just revolve around this movie, but one of the lines that I absolutely love, and I use it a lot when I refer to people I don't really care for, I often say, no, Benjamin's no one's friend. If he were an ice cream flavor, he'd be pralines and dick.
That was one that's clearly right up there, and that one, I did say that one a lot. And that was definitely one of the ones that was at the top with me and my buddy Josh in college. There's just so many stupid things in this, and honestly, what it me looking back at that movie, because like I watched it when I was probably not supposed to, as far as it being a PG rated or a PG-13 rated movie at the time, all these things. My parents just knew that I had gotten into watching Saturday Night Live. I really loved Chris Farley and all these guys that were on the show at the time, and didn't really care. They just let me watch it. They brought it home on, they watched it at night, and the next day after school or whatever, like, hey, you can watch it if you want. There's nothing wrong in it. So I plugged it in and was hooked instantly at the Bohemian Rhapsody scene.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, and it just continued to stream right through it. And that scene itself, and we're going to tell a story here, because this is one of those things that people don't notice unless you watch it a few times, and you're going to hear this and you're going to be like, oh my God, they do look rigid. And apparently they had rehearsed and done and watched that part of the movie so many times to try getting it right. They did so many takes that Mike Myers and Dana Carvey's necks had started bothering them, so they almost couldn't really do a full like headbang anymore. They were kind of doing a and getting that very robotic. But as far as scenes that lived on in movie history, that one right there, Tommy, I think if you were picking a moment from just pick a movie in the 90s, that's one of those clips that ends up resonating with a lot of people.
100%. And I will tell a really quick, easy story about Wayne's World. So obviously you had mentioned it, the Bohemian Rhapsody scene. That scene alone, using that song, actually helped boost the popularity of Queen and that song, probably not necessarily to the level that the movie Bohemian Rhapsody did. But it did bring a resurgence of the popularity of Queen back into the and it was, that movie came out shortly before or after.
Just after.
Yeah, just after
Freddie
Mercury passed away. But I will tell you a story. So my friend Steve and I, we would go to Pizza Hut back when Pizza Hut used to have sit down and you can sit down and eat. And we would have friends with us and everything. And we would always order, pizza, and we would sit there, and they would always, and they had
the weirdest big red cup ever.
Yes. And they had a jukebox in this Pizza Hut, and they had arcade games and stuff, but we would go there and we would sit and eat. And the managers and the wait staff knew us. They knew we weren't troublemakers as kids and stuff. So whenever we wanted to play songs in the jukebox, they would actually erase everybody else's songs. And I probably shouldn't be saying this, but they would erase the song so we can put our songs in. And it was always we always had to put Bohemian Rhapsody in there because it was on the Wayne's World soundtrack. That soundtrack was on the jukebox. And one instance, we actually got the entire restaurant. And I swear to you, unless I am completely lost all of my brain cells, I remember it as Steve and I and our friends, we would actually be singing the song loud enough for us to sing it, but we got the entire restaurant singing Bohemian Rhapsody, and it was magical. It was one of those magical moments that you can't, and it's all because of Wayne's World. So there
you go. Did that same thing in an Irish piano bar in Texas somehow. I don't know how that one worked out, but the guy was playing Bohemian Rhapsody, and me and my drunk friend Nate just started singing it at the top of our lungs. I'm sure it sounded so perfectly on pitch.
Oh yeah.
I'm a drummer, so I have such a good singing voice. But to that point, same idea. It was a perfect movie moment. And the fact that, and then of course, being around my friends and everything, right after they get done with that scene, they got the one guy that they basically was all partied out, and they drag him into the car, and he's trying to actually legit get out, and he's going, "Let me go," and they're like, "We will not let you go." So it was just spot on. There's all these little subtle jokes going on amongst it too, and
I'm giving you a no spew guarantee.
And then he pulls out that little cup, and he's like, "If you're gonna spew into this."
Spew into this.
It's like a Dixie cup that was folded up. But another movie with a bunch of stars in it and everything. Al Bundy makes the weirdest cameo of all cameos in this whole thing. It's like a quasi like escaped murderer or something like that. It sounds like just running Stan Mikita's donut shop.
Yep.
And talk about Chicagoisms right there. Mikita's Donuts, right? And then just having Rob Lowe as the villain, you know. I know he knew him from Saturday Night Live and stuff, but that was a get at that time for them to be able to get him into that movie as the villain and him to be as spot on evil. And I'm not just talking the Scooby-Doo ending. I'm talking just period. Could you have casted a better villain than Rob Lowe was in that movie, just trying to steal their show?
You know, honestly, I got to meet Rob Lowe, but
I know you did. And he thanked you for your service. Those blue piercing eyes kept you on point, right?
Yes. But no, actually, yeah, that was, I have to contribute Wayne's World as being where he kind of like was kind of getting his comeback, if you will, from in acting and everything. And yeah, and he actually ended up doing a couple other, or at least one more. He did Tommy Boy.
He did
shortly thereafter. So, you know, yeah, it was Rob Lowe's comeback movie, if I'm not mistaken. I could be, but yeah, I mean, you know, he was part of that Brat Pack, you know, kind of group. And no, but yeah, Rob Lowe was like the perfect. He could be very dry. And that's that he played that character the way that character was meant to be played.
Yeah, 100%. And in the midst of that, so you got, you know, I think the funniest piece of this whole thing is with as good of a villain that Rob Lowe played. I forget the guy's name, but his little minion there that was his buddy for the TV show that was trying to teach everybody how to do everything, and he ends up flipping around and there's the whole weird "I love you" thing going on with the other guy, and it's like I found that two men can actually have a nice platonic relationship. All these kind of things, and it was just all these stupid little things. And I thought, as far as having a random, that was the thing that made that movie great. Same thing with Blues Brothers. All of the B characters were spot on perfect. There was just no pieces that were problems. The fact that you have Chris Farley being the one that literally foreshadows the whole entire ending to undermine Rob Lowe was perfect. All these little pieces that played into what turned into being, like, in my opinion, one of the better comedies that you can have. But there you go. There's my point to it.
Gotta love it.
So those two movies that we've already talked about have both had sequels, and I'm going to go off card a little bit here from the timeline. Blues Brothers 2000, not the biggest hit.
No, and I think a good portion of the reason why it wasn't that great of a hit was the fact that we don't have John Belushi. We have his brother Jim, and who else is on there? Well, John Goodman's in it.
John Goodman was it would have been a good movie, but the problem was the long gap. Jim Belushi was not in the movie.
I'm mistaken.
No, you were mistaken, John Goodman.
Yes.
So, honestly, he played that perfectly. I thought he did a good job, but like I said, it was just too many years between the two. There was 18 years there. You lost John Belushi, and outside of it just being another excuse to get the band together, literally, and go out and have a story. It was pretty much the same movie, but not the same heart.
No, I agree. Even though they had John Landis as the director all over again. It I hate to use this term, but it almost seemed like a money grab. You're going on it. You're going for the nostalgia. And it's almost seems like it's a money grab at that point. It's the money grab was me
getting sold a Nintendo 64 game for a Blues Brothers game. That was the money grab. But there was a promo on McDonald's, and there was a lot of build up to that movie coming out for it just to be the same movie over again. With this, trying to push the whole thing to another level, right?
And that's exactly it. I mean, even if you look at it, and I'm looking at the IMDb where it just kind of gives you a one word or a one sentence kind of breakdown of it. It says Elwood must reunite the old band with a few new members and go on another mission from God. So it's like,
same one.
They could have. Now, could they have done something different and made it something new with the characters? Probably, but it,
is that what we all wanted to see? Like, I don't know. To that point, like I said, I was entertained. I enjoyed it, but I'm not. That's not. If I'm gonna go sit down and watch a Blues Brothers movie, it's definitely not the second one.
Right. But yeah,
it's
so
not gonna stop me from channel surfing usually either.
No, you're right. Like it would definitely be one movie that I would be good. Like, but again, so you sell the soundtrack, you don't sell the movie.
Which is what he now does with the House of Blues.
Yeah.
So where I bought this shirt.
But that was 18 years. So
So now the other one that had a sequel, Wayne's World 2, did not have that time gap issue. It was bang, bang.
Right.
92, 93, hurry up, get it done. Nothing crazy. And what I loved about the two of them together was they didn't make the exact same movie. There was enough tweaks that kept me interested in it, which is why I enjoyed the sequel just as much. And to that point that you brought Christopher Walken in to officially try and steal the girl this time instead of just toying with the idea. Maybe it was those kind of things. I think it just brings it down to the stupid joke of where they go, a sphincter says what to Christopher Walken? And he goes, you want me to say what? Like, I don't get it. And you're like, oh, yeah. Last guy didn't get it. You good. Those stupid little subtleties that they knew this many people watched the first one. Having fun with what they did in the first one to bring some of those stupid jokes into the second one and have another really good time of putting on a concert is really what it did. I even liked the little Jim Morrison ghost and the weird naked Indian. It was a weird fun thing to just
don't worry, we're gonna clean it up.
But the fact that his friends were like, oh yeah, he's losing it. So, but it was funny enough, honestly, not that terribly now that I'm thinking about it. If a spinoff, it was another mission from God, it was just from Jim Morrison instead, right?
Yes. I also like the fact that they did bring in other characters. They brought back Chris Farley, but in a completely different, aspect. You're not getting the same guy, but I did like it. I will have to say that I didn't like it as much as the original, or I should say the first one. But it did tell a completely different story, and it wasn't a money grab per se.
It felt like a logical continuation of the characters, not just here it is, good luck, right? So,
but yeah, bringing, and then you get, you get that like Alice Cooper moment, with Aerosmith, and you have that. So it's like, oh wow, look at the rock stars are intellectuals and they know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that I got to have my own little Wayne's World Alice Cooper moment with my buddy Josh back in the day. We I can't remember when it was, but the night before Halloween, it was Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper were playing in Binghamton, New York here, and it was only a hour and a half drive from where me and my buddies went to college. So we went on the road trip and went. And me and my buddy were like, well, it's on Halloween. We got to dress up, right? So we actually did full on dress up as Wayne and Garth. And I dressed up as Garth. Gee, you wonder why with the glasses, right? And we ended up just being those guys in the stands. And we were walked down to the pit and we just kept going, yeah, party. We were walking around like with fake badges and stuff like that. Like we were going backstage and shit. And everybody just kept walking and letting us up front. It was like that scene in the second one where the crowd surfing's happening. They're literally like watching the refrigerator, the pizza guy, and everything come off of the crowd, right? They got right up to the stage and were actually able to do this to Alice Cooper. He kind of did the whole little hold out the glove thing. So it was a nice little breaking character for him, I thought. But as far as that goes, the rock and roll culture at the time was just awesome, and seeing it in that fashion in both those movies was, like I said, the cherry on top.
Well, yeah, I will say this: when it comes to both of those movies, the soundtracks were fantastic. People bought the soundtracks back then because you were getting songs that you wouldn't normally get, on like a studio album from any of those artists. So, and sometimes artists were commissioned just to make a song specifically for soundtrack. So
yeah,
I would have to say both of those soundtracks were also fantastic.
Yeah. There was actually a Red Hot Chili Peppers song that was only on that soundtrack. I forget what it's called, but it is wild. It's playing in the car while they were Tia Carrera and Wayne were driving somewhere.
That's right. Let me see if I can pull that up.
So I forget the name of it.
Wayne's World 2, right?
No, I think it's in the first one. So, but same. That's something that gets missed in a lot of people's knowledge. The Goo Goo Dolls here from Buffalo, New York, had one of the biggest soundtrack movies. That the movie sucked, but it was one of those soundtracks because of that song that sold like crazy with Iris. But that's a normal occurrence for some things sometimes, especially at that time frame. Go ahead. Just saying
so
it's like the weirdest long name ever, right?
It's a weird, and I'm not, it's okay. So I'm going to spell it. It's SIKAMIKANICO. So Sika, Mika, Nico.
So old school Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's not even funny. And it's honestly a really good song. It's a very, very typical prototype pre-Californication Red Hot Chili Peppers. So yeah. And I want to say that was between the Red Hot, I think it was between that and Red Hot Minute. I think it was in that time frame.
Yeah.
So really good stuff. But to that point, loved everything. And then the fact that they right before the mega happy ending, they do the Ballroom Blitz by Sweet. And Tia Carrera actually sang in that song, and she did a really damn good job too. So that was another one of those movies that they didn't want to dub somebody singing. They wanted to find Dwayne's dream woman that could sing. That was the whole point, right? So they found him. Exactly. Sang. Uh-oh, Stacy alert.
Psycho hose beast. so with that,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So with that said, so Wayne's World 2 came out in 93, which then brought us out another sketch come movie in 93 with the Coneheads.
Yes.
Now,
sir.
this is
the Death of All. That was the first high ticket budget one.
And this is right now. Lorne Michaels is saying, "Wow, I can make some money off of this stuff." And this is and I'll call it this. This is an intellectual property that came from the first cast, the first season, even I believe, or first few seasons of SNL, and they just kind of brought it into the 90s. So we're talking, late 70s, and they're bringing characters that they had, and they even have cast members, Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin. Playing Beldar. Was it Beldar and
And
Oh God,
primates.
is that her name?
I think
Yes,
so.
yes, yes. And then they had their daughter Connie.
Yeah, because why not? But they're from France. It's okay.
Or
They're
from
aliens,
France.
right? But that was a very
I
popular sketch. Very popular.
yes.
Everybody talked about the Coneheads. You and I living here in Rochester, New York, there's a gentleman that still goes to every major or minor league baseball game here in Buffalo and Rochester that is known as the Conehead and still wears the thing. And there's
Mhm.
now a mural of him, Tommy. I don't know if you've seen this, but on
I've
a
seen it.
local baseball card shop,
Yep.
he is immortalized in a 3-story tall mural. It is just of him.
Oh, you
So
need
it's
3
perfect.
stories to accommodate the head.
Yes. It's a little tall. So, but that's the cultural impact that from then, this
Mhm.
guy is, our age and getting, a little older even. He's probably approaching retirement as far as, you know, giving out beers anyways at a
Yeah.
baseball game.
Oh, yeah.
That's the impact that it had back in the 70s was that, hey, I can be unique and I can do this at a baseball game. And everybody yelled out, hey, Conehead, I need a beer. And he goes, who needs a beer? And,
Yep.
gets it to him.
Yeah.
But it was
Go ahead.
honestly not a bad movie at the end of the day. It was, I'd say maybe poorly timed and when it could have came out and whatnot, but
Right.
it was funny. I enjoyed it. When am I going to go out of my way and probably watch it 9,000 times? Probably not. But I
Well,
did have a good time watching it.
I would throw it under that blanket of, as visual comfort food. I'm gonna sit there and I will watch it because it's on and it reminds me of a time when I was younger and I was in high school and it, again, another great soundtrack,
Yes.
and you had some and you brought in some of the at the time the current um cast members of SNL. You had Chris Farley was Connie's love interest, and when they were messing
Yeah.
around with the sensor rings, and he's all kind of sweating, he's looking like he's like it looks like he's tweaking.
But he was a good, perfect pairing for the character that was obviously being played so straight as the daughter, to have the manic kind of like a little overzealous boyfriend, obviously a little out of his comfort zone with a father that looked like he wanted to bite his head off, and you saw
Yeah.
those teeth he could have.
Oh yeah.
So, but to that point, it ended up being, like I said, it was a funny movie because they spawned it into like, okay, they're illegal immigrants. The U.S. government's coming after them. I forget
Hmm.
the guy's name, but he was with David Spade hunting them like it was like basically ICE coming to get anybody at this point, and in current history fun, but it just turned into a funny movie that he we can't handle all the universe's space immigrants here in the United States. That was the whole premise of the movie, was trying to get them, and then they finally got off planet and had to fake their death to come back to Earth for their own daughter, was the ending of the movie. So
Yeah.
interesting. But now, Tommy, that would be the last bang, I would say, as far as the movies, as far as something that actually did well at the box office, I guess would be the best way of saying it. I think the next ones that you're talking about here on this list, obviously, are that comfort food level that you were talking about, the
Yeah.
cottage rental, the hanging out with the family and goofing around and having a good time. I forgot they made a movie about It's Pat.
Hmm.
And speaking of movies that they probably would never in their mind make in especially a politically charged time frame like it is right now, with everything, everybody's personal body rights and all that kind of good stuff, that was one that I would think would be a little bit hard to film these days. But
Yeah. And the thing about It's Pat, it was a great character. It was a fun character. People liked it. They liked and again, it was Saturday Night Live pushing the envelope on, the social norms of the time.
Mhm.
And and I think, and I would have to look this up, but Julia Sweeney played Pat, and I think she had recently come out, maybe because of the politically charged climate that we are in, and not to get into it, but I think she even
Yeah.
apologized for that part because if you think about it now and you watch it, it is kind of insensitive, you
Correct.
know, and so it wasn't
But
a great movie. It was a sketch that I would say went too long,
yeah.
and it's like it and it's
Which
and
could perfectly translate into the next movie we're going to talk about here because they went dead for 94, 95.
right. But I would say that when you get to that, it looks like, um, and I'll even use an SNL reference. I always looked at it as all of the so-so sketches are the ones that come out after the Weekend Update. So it's like, okay, this is before they do the second song of the musical guest. So all of
Yep.
those kind of like, these ones,
The one that
these
just
sketches,
made the cut.
yeah, they just made the cut, and they're like, they may not get any laughs, but by that time, everybody's kind of laughed out. So they're like, well, we'll just
Yeah.
throw these in there, and
And
I
so it's just
feel like
awkward like Pat was.
right, and I think that that's where this movie kind of falls into that it was a sketch that was kind of after Weekend Update, and everybody's kind of laughed out, and they're just like, we
Yeah.
really didn't need an hour and a half long Pat sketch.
Yeah. And then same thing with Stuart Smalley with Al Franken, that I was shocked that they even made this movie. This is the only one that I actually had not legit seen on this list, Tommy. And I forgot that they completely did it. And I would say right now in hindsight that I hated that sketch to begin with. So I'm not terribly upset that I missed this. But
So I have seen it, and I'm an SNL fan. I've been an SNL fan, and there are times when I can say it's like, oh God, can we just stop? But I will say that I do still to this day will say things like I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And I will do that daily affirmation from Stuart Smalley, but I I don't yeah, this again, it's one of those sketches that doesn't translate well to a hour and a half long movie. And I would have to say that people at that point were laughed out. They I think they were trying to find the characters that people liked on the show, and was like, you know what, let's let's see if this sticks. And again, at that point, I think people are laughed out at,
yeah,
at some of these off the wall characters. Now there are
yeah,
characters that I probably would have been like, they should have got a movie, or at least a look, see if they could find a writer that would write a really good script for an hour and a half long. But some of these characters were just like, really? So yeah, you didn't miss anything.
I'm okay with it then. Got it. So, but then the last four here that are on the list, Tommy, I'm glad I watched all four of these. And at the end of the day, they're, like I said, am I going to go watch the last four of these repeatedly? Probably not. Like I watch Wayne's World or any of the Blues Brothers movies like that we were talking about earlier. But the last four on the list are Night at the Roxbury, Superstar, The Ladies' Man, and MacGruber. And all of those movies are kind of in the same quality level. Not any over budget things or anything like that. They probably performed exactly the way they did. I think it's funny that Will Ferrell is in as many of those movies as he is.
Yeah.
And watched his career obviously go high after a lot of these movies. But Night at the Roxbury, two guys literally singing, or not singing, but just dancing with the awesome little head shake constantly to What Is Love. And it turned into some really, really funny sketches. But the two of them together, I thought it focused a little funny on, them separating for like 3/4 of the movie, some things like that. But to that point, I would have this one might have been just better off as a sketch and leaving it there, especially with the one that they invited Jim Carrey along with, and it was hysterical. But at the end of the day, I can't knock this too much because it did get Will Ferrell moving in the movie scheme a little bit. With same thing with Superstar.
So
go ahead.
I have to. So I like A Night at the Roxbury. I think they have some great one-liners in there. Some,
And it does.
you know, I, you know, and that's one of my isms. I always say, but I love when they're like telling a story and they're like, we were waiting in line and there's Emilio Estevez. And you know who that was? It was Emilio Estevez, the Mighty Duck Man. And he tipped his hat like this. And I was like, Emilio! Emilio! And then, oh, look, it's Richard Grieco, Mr. 21 Jump Street.
So, and then there was that weird relationship he had with the woman for the credit cards.
Yep.
At the store, the pool supplies place, right?
Yep.
All that.
But no, I have a soft spot in my heart for Night at the Roxbury, and maybe you don't like it as much, but I do. I have a soft spot in my heart for Night at the Roxbury.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not that it's a bad movie. I'm definitely not slamming it in that ballpark. It was one of the. It definitely wasn't like the two we just talked about. That it's like, yep, be perfectly fine not seeing it or wiping it from my memory, and it wouldn't be the end of the world. I would be a little upset if some of the stupid jokes from Night at the Roxbury, that Emilio one you just nailed was had a couple of guys that I worked with over the years and at two different employers that was Emilio, and I was like, yelling it across the room. I was yelling, "Yo, Emilio!" just like that. So you couldn't say it.
Tipped his hat like this.
So totally get where you're coming from on that one. So as far as the other one goes, Superstar. This one I actually truly enjoyed, and it didn't get much. Maybe it was just one of those things that I remember the good time that I had watching it with the group of people I ended up watching it with just as much as the movie. But, Molly Shannon was on point with that character. And that was one of those characters I guess you could write a story for and find a way to get it into, they got the private school fun with all that. They did the Will Ferrell as the quote unquote love interest for the most awkward person on the planet. Especially with the whole
he's the
thing going
Will
on.
Will Ferrell's the coolest guy in all of the Catholic school, so it's like
had like the that's almost Fabio like hair thing going on. So, but as much as I remember enjoying that movie, it's one of those movies that's I remember good things about it, but I don't remember that like one slam thing like we're talking about here with the Emilio thing or anything like that from the movie outside of the same mannerisms that Molly Shannon carried with Mary Catherine Gallagher throughout the sketches. So to your point, a good extension of the sketch, but maybe, I don't know.
I liked it. It goes, I put it up there in that same vein as the Coneheads and Night at the Roxbury, pretty much the same kind of, like you said, the same kind of movie. It's I have nothing. It definitely is not it's much better than Stuart Saves His Family. It's much better than, It's Pat. Is it, Citizen Kane? No, but it's still a good movie.
Oh, you almost killed me. So let's continue the ball rolling here as we wrap up the rest of the show.
It's not bad.
Yeah, try to kill the host. I see how you are. It's been 4 shows. You're already ready to usurp energy. So the last 2 on the list, The Ladies' Man was the last one, and it ended the millennium. It got us to the year 2000, and then nothing happened. And I honestly thought this was a good try, as far as Tim Meadows actually getting a chance to do something with a character, because he's a very talented comedian. And I've enjoyed watching his career over the years, especially where he just seems to get thrown into everything now. And I think that's kind of humorous. He was in Star Wars this year. In the past year, he's one of the random people. But on that note, The Ladies' Man was always it's a show. It's he's doing this. It's a character. Okay. Well, is that what Leon Phelps is all day, every day? Or is that an act.
Right,
We
right.
found out it was, unfortunately, that's how he is all day, every day. And he hangs out in a dive bar eating pickled eggs all day and challenging people to the worst eating contest I think I've ever seen on film. But to that one, it was another one that was like that. It's just like, great, it happened. I was entertained. Keep moving.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just for the time it was all right. Yeah, it's not Citizen Kane.
It's not Citizen Kane. And then definitely MacGruber is not Citizen Kane. Is the last one on the list here for movie number 11. And at the end of the day, Tommy, this one was, honestly, I thought this was going to be more of a spoof play on MacGyver for the whole movie. And I don't think they understood what the character was itself enough on the sketches to translate it to a movie. And they lost that satire part. They tried to be almost a little too serious, I thought, with themselves, and it hurt them.
Yeah, you mean the characters taking themselves too seriously?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not mistaken, doesn't who was it? Who's the guy that actually plays MacGyver? Doesn't he make a cameo in it?
He does, I think. I can't
Doesn't
remember.
he play like his dad or something like that? That's his dad, or whatever. But
something
whatever.
along those lines.
I've only seen the movie once, so and I'm looking.
That's probably all you need to do.
I'm looking at the IMDb right now, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is like, okay. I didn't even remember that Val Kilmer was in it, so I would have to defer to you because I can't.
Yeah.
I really can't remember. All I know is that it was kind of a spoof of MacGyver, and but
$10 million budget, and it got about $8.5 million in the box office. So don't.
But those, but that's you're also looking at the popularity power of the cast that's in it. So you have you have Will Forte, who's MacGruber, and you have Kristen Wiig, who are two of at the time great huge characters and cast members of SNL. So why not try to make a movie on a reoccurring character? Because we got
clearly the two of them actually learned what not to do from that movie, because the two of them went on to star in some really big movies since.
Right.
Wiig is one of the biggest funny people in Hollywood at this point, and Will Forte's been in some great comedy classics over the years, one of the cops in Superbad, for example, right?
Fun fact, Kristen Wiig is from Canandaigua.
I always forget that she's from around here. So shout out to the Rochester region there. Finger Lakes. So, but that's it ended up being a springboard for the two of them. Obviously, it got them on a more public scale in in Hollywood, and it was a decent movie. Like I said, I'm not knocking that, but if you're one of those people that just wants to make sure you watch all the Saturday Night Live movies, this is definitely not the worst one. It's probably one of the middle of the range ones. So as far as good and quality and funny, I just thought it was a little funny that it's like, okay, I thought I was windowed here from watching all those sketches, and it shifted it just a little bit to the point where it was too serious and not playing on itself as much. And that's what I thought was a little odd, but it was still very entertaining and very funny.
Very, very, very funny. But I've only seen it once, so I can't, like I said, I defer to you.
Yeah, I might have to look at that one watching. I just like save my brain. So I guess I'm going to end the show, Tommy, here by asking, is there any sketches you can think of that you wish turned into an actual movie? And I'm not talking about the one where Chris Farley's ran up the ramp with Deion Sanders and his ass ended up falling out while they were trying to get the ambulance.
No. Honestly, I would have liked to have seen, well, again, how does it translate? How do you take a 5-minute sketch and turn it into an hour and a half long movie? Could you do it with their cheerleaders, which was it was Cheerio Terry and Cheerio Terry. And Will Ferrell. Could you make a movie about those two? And can you? And I think you could, and it would be more or less like a Night at the Roxbury or a Superstar kind of format. because they're the two cheerleaders that didn't make the squad, so they were like, you know what, we have so much spirit, we're going to be our own cheer squad for any and every club that we possibly can do at school. So I think that could be it.
That would have been a funny one. I was honestly very shocked with how popular Matt Foley ended up getting. That you wouldn't, actually getting him to see in what his van down by the river looks like, or
so Chris Farley did get a pretty good career, film career because of SNL. So you had Tommy Boy, you had
Black Sheep. He did
Black
one
Sheep.
with Perry that was almost famous, and he was in a lot of great movies. Beverly Hills.
Right. God, I forgot about that one.
It's a great one.
But no, you're right. That's exactly what it is. Is a lot of them, like I said, it was a springboard for a lot of great careers. Some we will never get to know their greatness anymore. Like John Belushi died. He was even supposed to be in the original Ghostbusters. So, and the character of Slimer actually is supposed to be modeled after John Belushi as kind of an homage to him. So, yep. So sad.
Yeah, but
that's,
don't worry about it.
but that's it. But I actually liked this the show idea that you had, because it made me think about a lot of again, it's the nostalgia of it. A lot of these movies came out when I was in my my teenage high school years, and it brings back just all of that great memories of being in high school and going to Pizza Hut and getting the entire freaking restaurant singing Bohemian Rhapsody. And it's just great memories, man. And no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have two other stupid ones that I thought would be amusing Saturday Night Live sketches to movies. And one was the fact that I would love to see what Mr. Robinson's neighborhood actually looks like.
Oh, dude.
Hey, kids, this is how we answer the door in my neighborhood. Who is it?
That would have been awesome. And now that I think about that, oh my God, that would have been awesome.
Watching Eddie Murphy just be able to just go wherever he wanted to with that character would have been hysterical.
We need to come up with a treatment and pitch that. We should do that. Yeah. We should pitch that.
Yes. And then the other one, not terribly far from that idea, but what is Opera Man's actual day life like? Is he sing actually all the time like that, or is Opera Man always like
or Canteen Boy?
Oh God, Canteen Boy. Let's keep him away from Alec Baldwin movies. I think the closest we got to Canteen Boy was him spurring that character off into the Water Boy, and Bobby Boucher. But like I said, those two popped into my mind while we were chit chatting. It was like, oh man, what other ones would there be that would actually be moderately, the bar wasn't too high for an acceptance level here, to be able to go from sketch to movie. Apparently, the one that, like I said, was oddly the most thought out was Wayne and Garth, and that spurred into two great movies, and that's the reason that those two have made the most out of the movies. Period, for all of them. Just for the sake of record, the top three grossing movies in Saturday Night Live movie or sketch to movie history is Wayne's World 1, Blues Brothers, Wayne's World 2. It's that order. So I know it's terribly shocking. The two best, and then
all of the others combined probably made the revenue of Wayne's World 1.
Yeah, you're honestly not terribly far off from that. If me just shoving the numbers in my head right now. Yeah, Coneheads was the next closest one at $21 million. Oh, yeah. I take that back. Night at the Roxbury and Superstar both had 30 mil, so they actually doubled their budget. That's kind of they actually made good money. So there you go.
They probably still get some sort of residuals and stuff like that, because they are not necessarily in heavy rotation, but they are filler movies that they put on TBS and and whatnot.
Yeah. And then on the other fun thing is we live in the world of streaming now. Pluto TV's got Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2 and all these Saturday Night Live movies constantly on renovation or on revolving on the comedy channels, it seems like. So like hence the reason, like I said, I stumbled onto this idea is I happen to be up way too damn early on a Sunday when there's nothing good on TV. So a lot of the times I will just switch over to that because I'm like, well, there'll be something either a great action movie I like or something silly that I can enjoy. And Pluto TV that app has always got something like that on it. I've actually been thoroughly enjoying that app, Tommy. So as far as silly things like that.
No, not to make this a Pluto TV commercial because we're not monetized people. So I'm just telling you right now.
But if you're listening, Pluto TV,
if you're listening, are they censored? Like, do they do the beeps or do they, so you actually get like the cuss words and potentially the nudity if there's any nudity in those movies?
I haven't seen anything problem with any of that. It's
okay.
Like I said, their biggest thing is it's free TV all day, every day. They just insert commercials into the movies like you would on any other thing that you're ever watching on Comedy Central or anything else. And it's that simple.
So if I'm watching Die Hard on Pluto TV, I'm not going to hear Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Ducker.
Or was it Mr. Falcon, I think was one of the ones that they switched it to on TBS. The fuck is Mr. Falcon? When the bleep is so bad that it makes the kid actually ask, what the you did something wrong as far as how you bleeped it out and censored it. so
if we ever come back to SNL, I want to see. We need to play this. No, this is the 30th anniversary edition, so it's pretty dated. But I think that if we ever play this online to where people see it, that's
amusing.
Yeah,
it's bad that it jumped right to it that I saw my eyes locked on it. Was Chris Farley dressed up with the freaking little thing like he was about to go out with Swayze.
Chippendale dancers, man.
Yep.
Chippendale.
Everybody's working for the weekend. So, Tommy, is there anything else you would like to add, or would you like to pitch everybody on your idea for what we're going to be talking about this coming week?
So this coming week, we may have to toy with the time because we are going to the toy show at the East End, right?
Village Gate, East End. Yep.
Village Gate Toy Fest on December 1st. But we may have to postpone the show until Monday because I have a prior engagement. But we are going to talk about Christmas movies, and I'll even extend it out to Christmas television shows like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. What we consider are the best, what we consider were must watches when it comes to our own traditions, and what is acceptable as to when you start watching them. Because apparently, as we see when we walk into department stores or even Lowe's and Home Depot, it's not even Halloween yet, and they've already taken down all of the Halloween stuff, 2 weeks before Halloween, and they're already putting in the Christmas stuff. So, my question to the Random Fandom family is, when should you, or when would you start watching and listening to Christmas music, watching Christmas shows, Christmas movies? When would you start? Now, traditionally, we start on the day after Thanksgiving. That's when we go and get our Christmas tree. That's when we start putting everything up. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And, Christmas movies in general. That's where we're going next week.
Yep. So make sure you get your Griswold jerseys out, your little winged moose things.
Got ours.
Make sure you get your Buddy the Elf costume on, your whatever it might be, or if it's just like we were talking about a minute ago, get your Die Hard on here, and we get your Merry Christmas, you fucking animal, or whatever.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. Mary Quinn just came on and said, Merry Christmas, or Christmas all year round.
Yeah, I got you, Mary. We got you. So thank you very much for listening, Mary. We greatly appreciate it. To that point, unfortunately, I'm with you, Tommy. I can't stand seeing the Christmas stuff out. I'm bah humbug until the day after I eat my turkey.
So, I'm right there with you. And
especially not mixed in with my Halloween. Those are two very, very conflicting things. Unless you happen to be at Disney World and doing the Nightmare Before Christmas like thing that they do, the haunted mansion, which I want to see one of these years. I've seen it on TV a few times. It looks really, really cool. So, but yeah, that's my deal.
So with that being said, we will see you next week, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, Craig. Tell the family I said hello.
And until next week, everybody, make sure you listen in on the live stream. I guess we're going to be live on Monday, December 2nd. So make sure you join us at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be good to go. And we'll talk all things Christmas movies, TV, and you're just regular traditions around pop culture Christmas, I guess.
Yep.
Until then, we are on anywhere you can get your podcast pleasures from, whether it's Apple or Spotify. Please make sure you give us a listen. That is where we're trying to build up the show. Make sure you give us a follow at TC Random Fandom on social media. You can find us. Chit chat with us. We want to hear from you. Make sure we have some cool things to make sure we post up like we just did with Mary, and have some comments from the Peanut Gallery, I'll say, for the time being, until we have a better name. We'll talk it out and we'll go from there. But on that one, I guess I'll say bye, buddy.
Bye, Mr. Narwhal.
Hope you find your day.